Hello and welcome to The Champions. I'm Monalisa, Dube, and in this program we celebrate individuals that have made great strides in their various spheres of influence. Today we are joined by Lucas Taruvinga, who is the Managing Director of Amtek Motors. Thank you so much for making time with us today.
Thank you, Monalisa.
All right, so we are going to take some time to get to know more about your current work, what you do, etc. But we want to know more about you as an individual. How did you grow up? How can you describe yourself to us, your background, your education, etc.?
Okay, thank you very much. I think, first of all, I am a Christian. I've got deep roots in God. Married to one wife. And,
I like that clarity.
And we're blessed with 3 children. But growing up, yeah, I grew up in the rural areas.
Which rural?
In Zaka there. I went to school in the rural areas, upper tops, then went to Chibi High, and from there I went to the University of Zimbabwe to do my Bachelor of Accountants honors degree at the University of Zimbabwe. Graduated from there, then started the Articles of Clerkship.
Right.
Articles of Clerkship is what you do to qualify as a chartered accountant. Was denied a few times to get into that profession.
Why?
Because of my background. Okay. I think having had land in the rural areas, the chartered accountant's profession then was for the elite. That those would have gone to Group A schools, private schools. People would have a different accent in English.
What's that got to do with, maybe you can just explain to that, what's that got to do with your qualifications to be a chartered accountant? Because I'm thinking they're looking at your grades and your performance at school.
I think, like I said, it's for certain people that were groomed differently. That was the perspective then.
During that time?
During that time, and it was for a certain group of people, not for everyone. So you would have gone to some Group A school, some private school. You would have been able to play tennis, for example, and probably golf and swimming, which things I had not done in
which you were not exposed to.
Yes, in my schooling. But then, yeah, I ended up enrolling for the Articles of Clerkship with BDO Zimbabwe, which was like an indigenous firm of chartered accountants, black chartered accountants, qualified in one sitting. As a chartered accountant, and in 2001, I qualified as a chartered accountant.
Right.
Then I worked for Old Mutual, short stint at Old Mutual, some building society, National Building Society, which did not stay. Then went to Amtek. I worked for Amtek as a finance manager before. That was from 2003 to 2005.
Right.
I then left Amtek as well. Went to National Foods, worked for Red Star, and to come back to the motoring industry.
Right. We're going to get into detail about that, but what is it that made you continue? I mean, you talked about how you were denied a number of times, but you were persistent.
Yeah.
Why? I mean, considering that you rightfully said that at that time it was meant for the elite, and your background, like you said, didn't match to the standards. So why did you keep trying?
No, I've always had a passion for numbers. I was very good at mathematics. In fact, I have very super grades from my high school to my degree. So I have always had a flair for numbers. I like numbers. I like being a chartered accountant. So I was persistent until I took it. Because I'm generally a hard worker. And when I believe for something, I've got to strive for it.
Right.
In fact, thereafter, I actually had to make sure that all my children go to private schools, to good schools, so that they would not be disadvantaged in any way. Yeah, but my parents could not afford that. They had to sell cattle for us to go to school. It was not easy. We would walk 8 kilometers to school on barefoot, without even shoes. You would have to walk 8 kilometers to school and bag, and no shoes in the cold weather. Thorns piercing your feet and all the like.
So to what extent do you think that your background, the one you're describing to us now, contributed to who you are now, today?
You know what, I always tell my children that when we were growing up, our parents didn't even encourage us to read. What they would encourage us to do was to herd cattle, to go to the fields. So most of the times we'd wake up very early in the morning, take some cattle, go to the field, plow and weed before you go to school. And no one would ask you whether you have done your homework, whether you have read. So it was like just
so you were
yourself.
self-motivated.
Yeah, motivating. All I didn't want was hard labor by the end of the day.
Right.
So I wanted to run away from shovels and picks and all those hard labor tools and be sitting in some office. That was the inspiration. In fact, when we would see our teachers, those were the only people that were educated in our areas. And,
right.
and initially I wanted to be a teacher. Actually growing up, I said I wanted to be headmaster, or I wanted to be some HOD in mathematics, something like that. That was they were inspired to sit in offices. I was inspired to run away from picks, shovels, and that kind of hard labor. Yeah.
So you did tell us about how you have you are an accountant by profession and you have this accounting background. How has this? How are you using it now as a managing director of a motoring company?
Yeah, I think it's basically about managing money. Business, by the end of the day, is money. What is it that remains in your pocket or the business pocket after all have been paid, after your suppliers, that the input costs, after your other stakeholders, the people who are involved in processing your products, your employees, the taxmen, and all other stakeholders are paid, then something must remain for the shareholders to continue building the balance sheet, continue building the business. So if one doesn't understand that, that's why a lot of businesses have folded. They're busy selling. Someone buys something at $10, they sell it at $9 and they think they're creaming it. But meanwhile, they can't go back and order the same quantity of goods they would have started with.
Right.
Because they're not able to manage their costs. The input costs, the processing costs, and the distribution costs. And to say what then remains. So when with my background as a chartered accountant, you're able to calculate all those costs from input, processing, distribution, and say what then remains after that, because I am a numbers person. I understand what it means, each transaction. What does it mean? What does
so you're monitoring all that?
Yeah, what does each transaction
Of course,
mean?
it's not just that you're monitoring,
No,
right?
no. I think, but you find, for me, though, what is paramount, I've always said, is the people that work in an organization. Apart from you being smart with numbers, I value people much more than anything. And we have an ethos at Amtek that says our uniqueness lies in our people. It doesn't lie in our products. It doesn't lie in our infrastructure. We sell motor vehicles, and you'd find those motor vehicles at other dealerships. We have got offices. You find those offices and much better ones at other dealers. But you can't find our people elsewhere except at Amtek. So that's our competitive advantage. So I spend much of my time focusing on my people. How do I look after them? How do I remunerate them? How do I...
And that motivates them to be the best version of themselves.
Yes. I've got about close to about 200 employees. And I know each one by name.
Wow.
I talk to each and every one of them, even the lowest shop level worker, so that, because I understand different individuals are motivated by different things. So it's not all about money. For someone, they want a scotch card at their rural home, and they are happy. If you give them a scotch card, they are happy, or if you help them to achieve that scotch card, to buy that scotch card, they are happy by the end of the day. So all different people are motivated by different things. And when
as a leader, you need to be able to understand that.
If you walk to some Joseph in the workshop there and say, Joseph, how's your son doing? By the way, he was in, last time I checked, he was in grade 6. How is he doing now? And you ask them, you address them by their son's name. It somehow motivates them.
Right. So you were talking to us about how you moved from different organizations, right?
Yes.
So what then found you back into the motor industry?
Look, it's I think the chairman of Motor Group then, after having worked at Amtek as finance manager, he was happy with my work. When I left, he actually started looking for me when there was a vacancy at Wheel of Mazda Motor Industry for finance director. So he then said, no, I liked your work when you were finance manager at Amtek.
Right.
And please, can you come back to the group? But then this time you're coming back to Wheel of Mazda Motor Industries. That's where the vacancy is. So I came back to Wheel of Mazda Motor Industry as a finance director, company secretary. For 3 years I was there. Then the MD then at Amtek fell sick, and he then the chairman then asked me to move to Amtek as in an acting capacity, whilst they looked for a substantive MD for Amtek, because he then resigned on grounds of ill health. That's how I found myself.
And we're going to talk more about that. Right now, we'll just wrap up this segment. And after this break, we're going to continue to talk about Mr. Taruvinga's journey. Stay with us. Welcome back. Thank you for staying with us. Today we're joined by the Amtek Motors Managing Director, Mr. Lucas Taruvinga, and we'd also like to express our gratitude to our sponsors who have made this program possible. We have Amtek Motors, Cresta Lodge, as well as Adam Bid and Rossum Properties. Thank you so much for making it possible for us to share stories that will inspire young people. Now, Mr. Taruvinga, before the break, we spoke about your transition as you were in the financial department and you were transitioning then into Amtek Motors, right? How was the transition for you?
It wasn't that difficult. I think working as a finance director at Mazda, the second in charge. So I was like always understudying my CEO then, Dr. Engineer Maria. So I was working closely with him and understanding how a motoring business is run. So it wasn't much of a challenge transitioning. But I think the only major thing then was then to manage the other stakeholders. Right. Because when you become managing director, you've got more other stakeholders. As compared to finance director, you've got the board, you've got the shareholders to manage. You've got employees, I think a bigger span of employees to then manage. Yeah, but it wasn't that difficult.
There's something interesting that you said. You said in your position that you were before you were promoted in an acting capacity,
yes,
you were understudying your CEO. Like, why? Did you know that you were going to be promoted, or it's just a culture that you have?
No, it has always been a culture. And a finance director in any organization usually is the second in charge. So from time to time, you'd go on leave, my boss would go on leave, and I would remain running the organization. So yes, from that angle, yeah, I had to understudy.
Did you have any fears at all as you were getting into a higher role in a higher position?
Yes, there are fears with them. Like I said, there were so many other stakeholders, external stakeholders, our suppliers, our franchisors. And I think moving to Amtek, then there were people that were seasoned and whom I thought probably would have been identified as acting managing directors. I knew them before, and then I was moving.
They were there before you?
Yeah, they were there before me. They had more experience, and I was moved there, and they were looking like this young boy. I think these were like elderly people to some extent. Yeah, so with that, it's then to say, will they respect me? How will they take it? Will they not sabotage? Something like that.
So let's talk a bit more about what you do as Amtek Motors. I know before we started the program, you were telling me that it's a subsidiary of a bigger motoring company.
Yeah, we were once a subsidiary of Motec Holdings, which was an investment of the government through the Industrial Development Corporation. But we've since, I think the government have since have their shareholding diluted. So we're now like a private company.
Right.
But what we do is we import vehicles, and we deal mainly in two motoring franchises, the Nissan franchise and the Mazda franchise. We, in addition, do tractors as well.
Why those two brands specifically?
For Mazda, we've done it over a long period of time. When we were in the same group with Willover Mazda Motor Industry, Willover Mazda Motor Industries would assemble vehicles. We would retail them as one of the dealers. There were so many other dealers, I think, but we were one of them, the in-house one. And for Nissan again, we've run with Nissan over a long period. These are trusted brands. These are trusted Japanese brands that do not give headaches to consumers in the market. So we've got a wide experience in dealing with Mazda. I think that spans for over 50 years with Mazda, over 25 years with Nissan. And these are trusted brands. We do not have comebacks on them. We have invested a lot of training, a lot of equipment into these brands. So,
what's the importance of specializing as a motoring company? Why do you think it's important for you to specialize?
Yeah, you would find there's a lot that comes into a motor car dealership in terms of just your infrastructure. There's a minimum standard that is required by the franchise in terms of your space. What kind of space you've got. There are thresholds in terms of your sales. There are minimum requirements in terms of your training. So you can't do all and sundry. Otherwise, you won't be able to have capital enough to meet all the requirements, the minimum requirements by the franchises. When you specialize, then you can then have economies of scale, because you've got your people trained. You are able to meet the minimum requirements that are called for.
I suppose this is why you don't have any returns, like you were saying that you've never had comebacks.
Yeah, no. Yeah, comebacks, you would get them here and there in the workshops, but we continue to train our people. We are the first Nissan dealer in the country to have what we call a master technician. Master technician is somebody who is certified by Nissan to train on behalf of Nissan worldwide and to issue certificates. So we have trained, we have invested in training a lot in our people.
What makes it important for Amtek Motors? Because someone may argue that I can literally just get my car imported by myself or by those other car dealers that are by the side of the road. What do you think makes your services unique that you have actually been able to be sustaining as a business?
No, we have been there for a very long time. 1953 is when Amtek started. That's a very long time, number one. We've served generations over the period. Number two, when you import vehicles, it's not necessarily just to bring in a vehicle, which is why you find a lot of these vehicles that are being driven around, after 2-3 months they started giving problems, because people do not have the expertise in getting the right vehicles. And these vehicles that are actually...
Define right vehicles.
Right. When you bring pre-owned vehicles, those are the ones you are describing, the ones sold by all and sundry by the side of the road. Those vehicles are not meant for a market. They are meant for a different market. That's why they come as second-hand vehicles.
Right.
So they are meant for a different market. It might be the same Isuzu when you look at it from outside, but internally it's different. Our terrain is different, number one. The parts that are put into that vehicles are different. Because some vehicles are meant for markets where the weather is hot throughout the year.
Right.
And when they come here where there's hot and cold, the temperatures are changing, the vehicle is subjected to that.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, so the vehicles made for Zimbabwe or made for South Africa or the southern region of Africa are different from any other vehicles made for Asia or the like, because they are made for different markets. They may look the same, but they are different. In fact, we use different codes when they are made in the plant.
So what would you advise someone who would stick to getting, which is most people would actually prefer to get them because of whatever reasons? What sort of advice would you get them?
I think if somebody can be patient, we all know because of budgetary constraints,
right?
People normally then would start with those. But if someone can then graduate into buying either a new vehicle, entry level, like in our case we've got the Datsun Go, which is entry level, or at least buy a second-hand vehicle which would have come into Zimbabwe as a new vehicle to start with. So you're actually buying it from X. X would have bought it from Amtek when it was new.
Right.
Then it was meant for this market. It was
so I
meant
take
for
it there'll
Zimbabwe.
be written Amtek Motors, the one that come via you.
Yeah, you would see there's some sticker we put. You may buy them from other dealers, not necessarily Amtek Motors, but they would have come into Zimbabwe as a new vehicle. That means initially they were meant for Zimbabwe.
Right.
They were meant for our terrain. They were meant for our climatic conditions.
That's interesting. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
So we are in a COVID-19 pandemic, and a lot of businesses have been hit hard because of various concerns such as the lockdowns, etc. How has your business been affected by the COVID-19 pandemic?
Yeah, we have been affected to some extent. I think you'd find other segments of our business. We can work from home. Your vehicle sales you can do from home. Tractor sales you can do from home, maybe space. But when it comes to service, which is the aftermarket part of the business, you have to touch a vehicle to service it. So we are usually in the critical services segment, and our people come on a rotational basis to then look after cars, because for the government function, we have to service their vehicles. For the hospitals to function, for the Ministry of Health, for everyone to run around.
The essential services.
So we are in the essential services sector. So it has affected us because there was a time where there's total lockdown and no one is moving. But we not to that extent, not to the very great extent.
To what extent do you think that as a country, as Zimbabwe, we have the right technology or enough technology to make sure that we sustain and keep up to date with certain trends within the motor industry in different parts of the world?
We are behind. I think now you see the electric vehicles coming, where you don't require gasoline, you don't require petrol, you don't require diesel. You just run on solar. You charge your battery overnight, and then you run your car on solar. But now coming to Zimbabwe, some of these cars then run, the battery runs say for 100 kilometers, and you can then recharge it. So we don't have that kind of infrastructure. For example, if I'm coming from here, I want to go to Bulawayo, to say where do I stop by to recharge my battery. So we are still behind in terms of harnessing that modern technology to do with electric cars, for example.
So how can we catch up? And in your opinion, as Amtek Motors, what role are you playing in making sure that we also catch up with other trends?
Look, we are training our own people to be ready when such vehicles come. But again, we also have input through the Motor Industry Association, through to the government. Because first of all, what must come through is the policy. The policy that then promotes investment into modern technology in the motor industries, which is why worldwide economies that have done well have protected their motor industries. For example, you don't get a used vehicle into the South African market. You can't.
True.
Whether you are a returning citizen, you're coming from America and you've got a good car from there, you can't bring it back to South Africa, even if you're a South African citizen. They safeguard their motor industry. Even these cars that they were bringing, when they're in South Africa, they are on trailers. They don't want them on their roads. Because they safeguard the motor industry. Is normally the backbone of any economy.
How do you think that we can actually get to that point where the motor industry is safeguarded? I know that the government has been putting a number of policies to make sure that your industry can actually thrive as well.
Yeah, we continue to lobby. We continue to put papers to educate the government and those that make policies, the parliament, to understand what it means to have our own assembly plants in the country. and safeguard our people from these grey imports. We call them grey imports,
right,
or pre-owned vehicles that come from Asian markets or other markets, because they are not meant for us. In fact, you have seen a lot of wreckage on the roads, a lot of accidents. But these vehicles are not meant for our market.
Right.
They are not meant for our roads. They are not good for our people. So we continue to educate our government. We continue to bring proposals to the government so that right policies are then made to support local assembly and consumption of vehicles that are.
But in the meantime, as Amtek, I know there are certain things that are within your control that you can actually contribute as well. What do you think those are?
Apart from educating our consumers, including the government, to buy new vehicles. I think that's what we continue to do, to say the likes of your utility companies, your ZESA and the like, we continue to educate them on the importance of buying new vehicles. Because I think what had happened over the decade is also, even corporates and government departments were going for these grey imports. So we are saying to them, no. They will give you short-term benefits. But if you want long-term benefits, a car that can take you 15, 20 years, buy it as new and meant for this market. So that's what we're trying to do now.
All right, we will continue with the conversation. We are with the Managing Director of Amtek Motors, Mr. Lucas Taruvinga, and we're going to take a quick break, but we also want to just quickly thank our sponsors that have made this program possible. We want to thank Amtek Motors, Dube, Rossum Properties, as well as Cresta Lodge for giving us a venue for us to host our guests. We'll be right back after this. We are now in the last segment of this program. I'm Monalisa Dube, and we are joined by the Managing Director of Amtek Motors, Mr. Lucas Taruvinga. And again, we want to thank our sponsors, Amtek Motors, for making this possible, as well as Rossum Properties, Dube, and Cresta Lodge for making this program happen. Now, Mr. Taruvinga, we've spoken about your journey from the beginning, from you said you were from Zaka to where you are now.
Yeah.
What would you say has been your greatest achievement in your journey?
Yeah, thank you very much. I think when I won, or when I was invited to receive an award for CEO of the Year 2019, the Mega Fest one, it was a surprise to me. It was a real surprise. Then I got an award in the gold category, the CEO of the Year award for Mega Fest. It was a very humbling time for me. Yeah.
Have you been receiving a number of those awards as your contribution as well as a business?
As a business, yes. As a business, we have received a lot of awards from Nissan, from Mazda, from Nissan. I think we have received awards. We've become nominees in Dealer of the Year award for Nissan in Sub-Saharan Africa.
Nice.
Because we're talking 42 markets that are done by Nissan South Africa. That's all of Sub-Saharan Africa. And we've won, last year alone, won about 5 awards in that category. We're talking of 42 markets. And in Zimbabwe, we've got 3 other dealers. We have 4 dealers of Nissan in the country. But we won, we've gotten quite a number of accolades.
I guess that's the benefit of specializing that we're talking about earlier on, of being the best in your trade.
Yeah, sure.
So obviously, as someone who has become a leader in your sphere, in your industry, do you have people that you look up to or that you may consider as mentors during your journey?
Yeah, I think the people like Douglas Mboweni of Econet are quite an inspiration to me. The way he is seen Econet evolving and getting other subsidiaries out of Econet, and I think the way he engages government on policy issues, I think it's a position that I would want to be one day in my life, where you can talk to government and government listens, you can talk and the industry listens, you can set trends. Yeah.
And what do you think is the importance of young people that also want to be leaders in future? What would you say is the importance of having mentors and people that you actually look up to?
It's very important. I think it's a journey that is not easy. It's a journey that takes servanthood initially. You'd want to be sitting under the feet of somebody, serving them, understanding how things are run, doing errands for them. I've done a lot of errands for my bosses in the past, but being humble, but taking notes in the process. It's not something that you can jump into. It takes a lot of cooking for you to be ripe enough, because then when you get into such a position, there are a lot of stakeholders to manage, and a lot of lives to manage as well. I think in my journey, I went through rough patches, even as MD for Amtek, and most of the times you would think of throwing the towel, but when you think of the people that are on your ship and you're the captain, you will just soldier in, try and put a smile on your face with challenges in basket. But just to show the English that no, we are able to do it, and we managed to turn around a corner. So it's not an easy thing, because this job goes with you home. It goes with you after work. It's not something that you can leave at the office. You get calls midnight.
Odd hours of the night.
Odd hours of the night. Again, I've always said one would need a stable home for you to run effectively. You need a stable spouse. Otherwise, you won't be able to do it. Yeah.
Well, what do you think is lacking, in your opinion, in your observation, in your work, maybe with young people as you interact with them? What do you think might be lacking in young people that they might need to address for them to get to the levels that you have gotten to?
There's no patience. I think in this day and age, microwave age, there's no patience. People want it like yesterday.
The Insta generation.
Yeah, and I think we see a lot of movies where somebody was born yesterday and then they grow up in 24 hours and they're a general manager. And life is not like that. Like I said, you have got to be patient. You have got to develop yourself.
Right.
I read a lot, I think much more. If you come into my office, you see a big library. But I read outside accountants. I read a lot, I read marketing. I read, and the best book being my Bible, because business is well articulated in the Bible. But I read a lot. I've got times of meetings with myself, introspect, meditate, think, be yourself, be sober. You don't cut corners. I think now you see people trying to cut corners, which is why even the president of the nation is trying to introduce anti-corruption into the curricula. It's because they've seen a lot of people trying to cut corners. People are not patient. People don't want to go through the process. So it's the process that lacks in our modern day youths.
So what sort of books would you recommend for them, like one or two? That you're reading?
I started like Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. I also read a lot by Jim Rohn, an American philosopher. They teach about the seasons of life, that life has got seasons. So one has got to understand the seasons of life, just like ants do. They gather all what they can gather in summer in preparation for winter. So as long as you can learn as much as possible. Be your best. In fact, Jim Rohn talks of a tree. He says the tree, no one tells it to stop growing. It gets to its best.
Right.
It stops after getting to its best. So that's what we need to do. When we've got time to learn, let's learn. Let's learn, let's have so much inside us. So that when time then to give out comes, we've got enough to give out.
Right, and opportunity always means preparation. That's when the magic happens.
Yeah,
so as we wrap up this conversation, Mr. Taruvinga, tell us a bit more about where people can find you as Amtek, how best they can offer. I know you spoke about your services throughout the program, but where can people find you to be able to access these services? Okay,
quickly we do vehicles. Let me reiterate. We do Nissan vehicles, we do Mazda vehicles, we do Tafe tractors, and we are found in Harare. For all those services, we do services. We sell brand new vehicles and we service. So we're found in Harare, we're found in Bulawayo, we're found in Gweru, we're found in Victoria Falls, we're found in Masinko, and we're found in Mutare. So we are almost like all over, so that we take care of our clients. Whenever they've got a breakdown, they can always call our nearest workshop to attend to the breakdown. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Mr. Taruvinga, for your time. We've learned a lot. Appreciate your time with us here on The Champions. And you too can be a champion. Go read a book or two, like what Mr. Taruvinga has said. Thank you so much for staying with us here on The Champions. We'll be back again next week. And we'd also like to thank our sponsors that have made this program possible. We want to thank Cresta Lodge, Amtek Motors, Adam Bede, as well as Rossum Properties. And until next week, be good.